Alright, boys and girls, today we are going to do lesson 6. And this is on page 117 in your book. And this is our lesson on finding the volume of composed, and sometimes it's called composite figures. You will hear them called different things. As you can see, this is when you're finding the volume of a figure that is not a right rectangular prism. So in order to do this, we have to make our shape into right rectangular prisms. Right now, I have this larger shape, and I'm going to have to figure out what I can do to it so that I can use my formula for volume. Okay, so this says Braden builds a frame in the shape shown. He plans to pour concrete into his frame. Write the unknown dimensions of the composed figure, and then describe how you found your answers. Okay, so a big part of solving problems like this is using the information that you know for sure to help you figure out what you don't know for sure. So we're trying to figure out this and this length. Sometimes it is kind of hard to just look at these and know what it is they're wanting you to see. Okay, so let's look at this. We're trying to find this dimension, what it measures. Okay, so what I always do is I look. This is a rectangle. I know that the opposite sides are congruent. So if this is 1 foot, then that is also 1 foot. Okay, now this length is also missing, which we know would be the same as this length. But I haven't been told that length. I've been told that this whole thing is 5, but I know that that is not the same as this one. There's these little chunks out on the side. But I can use what I know. If this is a foot and this is a foot, if I take those 2 feet away from 5, that means this is 3 feet long. Because so my video gave out on me a little bit, but so we know that that's 3 feet long because 5 take away 1 would give you 3, and we know that 1 is there because it's congruent to the other side. Those have to be congruent. Okay. Now B says draw a line to show how you can break apart Braden's frame into 2 right rectangular prisms and then find the volume of each one. So there are lots of different ways you can do this, and I kind of already broke it up into 3 parts. This is all dependent on what makes the most sense to you. But while we were talking, I kind of chopped it up a little bit. You can chop it up into 3 parts like I did here, or you could put a line right here and have a top piece and this whole bottom piece. Since I've already drawn these lines here to make it less confusing, we've put it in 3 parts. So we just made 3 right rectangular prisms, and that is totally okay. Whatever makes the most sense to you. So now we need to find the volume of all of these and put them together to get our total. So again, how long is my fish? This is 1 foot long, 2 feet wide, and 1 foot tall. 1 times 2 is 2. 2 times 1 is still 2. I know that my other one is exactly the same. So this has a volume of 2. This has a volume of 2 feet. Now, the length of this is 3 feet. The width of this whole thing is still 2 because this is 2, that is 2. They're all congruent. And how tall is it? It tells me right here that it's 2 feet tall. So 3 times 2 is 6, and 6 times 2 is 12. So 12 plus 2 is 14 plus 2 is 16 is your volume. 16 cubic feet, 16 cubic feet. And how did we find it? We found it by finding the volume of all the rectangular prisms. All right, so let's turn the page and keep working on this. Tori wants to use the design shown to build steps from solid blocks of wood. Find the amount of wood she needs to build the steps. All right, so A says draw a line to show how you can break apart her design into 2 right rectangular prisms and then find the length, width, and height. All right, so again, this is up to you. You can come right across here, or you can come up and down here. It is totally up to you. Both ways will get you the same answer. I think I'm gonna do this. So I'm gonna look at this tall one. I know how long it is. It tells me right there. And I know it's 8 inches wide. And I know it's 8 inches tall. 8 times 8 times 8. I know 8 times 8 is 64. 64 times 8. 8 times 4 is 32. 8 times 6 is 48, 49, 50, 51. So I'm going to write 512 in that one. So then, I don't know what this length is, but I know this whole thing is 16, and I know that is 8. So that means this has to be 8, because 8 plus 8 gives me my 16. This is how we're using what we know to figure out what's missing. Again, the whole thing was 16. If I know this is 8, this must also be 8. So this figure is 8 inches long. The width has not changed. The width is the same throughout. And the height is 4. It tells me right there. So again, 8 times 8 is 64. 64 times 4, 16. 6 times 4 is 24, plus 1 is 25. So that one, it has a volume of 256. Okay, so draw a line to show how you can break it apart, find the length, width, and height. That's what we did. What is the volume of each of them? 256 and 512. Write an equation to model the amount of wood that she needs to build the steps. All right, we're going to write 512 plus 256, and let's work that out. 512, 256, that'd be 8, 6, 7, 768. The amount of wood that she needs, 768 cubic inches. How could we check our answer? Well, you could pack cubes in there. That would take a while. But you could pack those cubes to check. All right. We're gonna turn to the next page. All right, so let's turn the page, and we are on page 119, and we're gonna keep finding the volume of these composed or composite figures. Okay. Now, up here, this is one method, one strategy that you can use to solve this. Some people look at these figures that aren't quite a right rectangular prism, and they pretend they are. And so they'll define their length, their width, and their height of the entire thing. Then they subtract what's missing. You could definitely do that. And to do that, you're going to need to figure out what these missing dimensions is. Okay? That way might be confusing to you. So I only want you to do that if that's something that you think would help it make more sense to you. So you would still be doing the same thing as far as figuring out what's missing. So again, if this is 16, if you know it's 16 and you know that this is 8, then this has to be 8, because 8 plus 8 gives you 16. All right, here's your width. Remember, it's this sideways line, and we know that this has the same width, so that's also 8. And then here, I know that this is 4, and I know this whole thing is 8, which means this whole thing is 8, which means this whole thing is 8. So 4 plus 4 would give you that 8. All right? So it says write the dimensions of the space above the bottom step, and then find the volume. So first we would do 8 times 8 times 4, and 8 times 8 is 64. And then we do 64 times 4. And we know 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times 6 is 24. Plus 1 is 25. So that means this empty space here measures 256 cubic inches. So it says if the space and the steps are combined, they form a right rectangular prism. What are the dimensions of that whole thing? So it's saying, let's pretend it's all filled in like I was just saying. So it would be 16 by 8 by 8. So 16 times 8, or how about we do this? I know 8 times 8 is 64. Then I'd have 64 times 16. So 4 times 6 is 24. 4 times 1 is 4, 5, 6. 6 times 6 is 36. 6 times 1 is 6, 7, 8, 9. 12, 1,024. So if I did that, then I would need to subtract that empty space away from what I had. 1,024. Take away my 256. 14 minus 6 is 8. 11 minus 5 is 6. And 9 minus 2 is 7. So that means that would have to be 768 cubic inches. That is a different strategy. That might be something that makes a lot of sense to you, or that might be something that you don't like to do, but that is an option of something you can do. But when we're doing them in here, I most of the time chop them up and figure them out that way because I feel like that's a little bit easier. So let's do that for number 1. We need to find the volume of this figure, which means we have to make it right rectangular prisms. You can do it either way that you want to. I think that I would like to just chop off this little one and have this little guy up here by himself. So I'm going to find the volume of this bottom rectangular prism. So the length is 8, the width is 5, the height is 2. That's pretty easy. 8 times 5 times 2. I want to write it all down. I know 8 times 5 is 40, and 40 times 2 is 80. And I'm going to write 80 right inside of here. My second one, how long is it? Well, I know it's 1 inch long because those are all congruent. How wide is it? The width is the same all the way across this entire figure, so that's 5. And how tall is it? It tells me this whole thing is 6 inches tall. So 1 times 5 is 5, and 5 times 6 is 30. So to find the combined, it would be 80 plus 30, which is 110.
Are you done?
Okay. Next, we have this figure, and I think I'm going to just remove this top one right here. So let's find the volume of this bottom figure. So length, how long is it? 8 feet, 5 feet wide, and 4 feet tall. 8 times 5 is 40. 40 times 4 is 160. Now here we've got length, width, and height again. So my length I know is 2 because it tells me it right there. My width is still 5, and my height is 3. 2 times 5 is 10. 10 times 3 is 30. So that would be a combined of 190 cubic feet. Okay. I want to do a couple more because I know this can be tricky. Let's do number 4 on the next page, 120. Alright, I'm going to chop this guy right here. Alright, let's find our dimensions. Length, how long is it? 8 centimeters long, 8 centimeters wide, 2 centimeters tall. I know 8 times 8 is 64. 64 times 2 is going to be 128. Okay. My second one is 3 centimeters long, 4 centimeters wide, and it's the same height. See how this figure is the same height all the way across, so I know it has to be 2. So 3 times 4 is 12, and 12 times 2 is 24. So 128 plus 24 would be 152 all together. We'll do this last one. And you might decide to chop yours a different way. That's totally fine. So I think I'm gonna do like this. Okay, so I'm gonna first find this length. Well, I know that the whole thing is 8, and I know that this is 3. So I know this is 3, which means this has to be 5, because 5 plus 3 is 8. So the length of this is 5, the width is 5, the height is 2. 5 times 5 is 25, and 25 times 2 is 50. Then I just have this figure, which I already know the length is 3. The width is the same throughout, which is 5, and it tells me my height is 6. So 5 times 6 is 30, and 3 times 30 is 90. So 90 plus 50 is going to give me 140 cubic centimeters. All right, so we're going to stop right there. I want you to do that homework page and do your best.